From call center to real life, the unlikely love between a young Indian woman and an American businessman. Thank you for calling Sunrise Solutions. My name is Sarah. How may I assist you today? My voice was perfectly modulated, the American accent I'd practiced for months flawlessly hiding my Mumbai roots. I'd been trained to sound like I was calling from somewhere in the Midwest, not from a sprawling call center in the outskirts of Mumbai where the sun was already setting while it was just mid-morning in New York. On the other end of the line was the man who would change my life forever, though I had no way of knowing it then. Just another frustrated American customer with a software problem that seemed insurmountable to him but was routine for me. Hi, Sarah, though I'm guessing that's not your real name. His voice wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact, with a hint of warmth that caught me off guard. I'm having trouble with my enterprise account. The system keeps locking me out, and I've got a presentation for our investors in less than an hour. If you're watching this video now, please stay until the end. What started with that simple customer service call blossomed into something neither of us could have imagined. A journey across continents, cultures, and prejudices that would test everything I believed about love, family, and belonging. And I promise, the ending will surprise you in ways you cannot imagine. My real name is Priya Sharma, and 3 years ago, I was one of thousands of young Indians working in the booming call center industry. With my English literature degree from Delhi University and my ability to neutralize my accent, I was considered one of the top customer service representatives at Sunrise Solutions. We handled technical support for several American software companies, primarily catering to business clients who paid premium subscription fees and expected immediate, competent assistance. You're right, sir, I replied, breaking protocol. We were supposed to maintain our American identities at all costs. My name is Priya. Now, about your enterprise account issue, I'd be happy to help. Could you please provide your account number? There was a pause, and then a chuckle. Well, Priya, I'm James Miller. Thanks for your honesty. Here's my account number. I quickly diagnosed the problem, an authentication issue related to a recent system update, and walked him through the steps to restore his access. It should have been a 7-minute call at most, our target resolution time. But, as I was about to wrap up, he asked something no customer had ever asked before. Priya, if you don't mind me asking, what time is it there in India? I hesitated. We weren't supposed to discuss our location, but I'd already broken protocol by confirming my real name. It's about 7:30 in the evening, sir. So you're working the night shift. While I'm here having my morning coffee in New York. Yes, that's right. It's quite common here. Well, I appreciate you helping me out, especially at that hour. You've saved my presentation and probably my job. Something in his voice, genuine gratitude, not the perfunctory thanks we usually received, made me smile. Just doing my job, Mr. Miller. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Please call me James, and actually, yes. Our company is looking to upgrade our entire software suite. Would you be the right person to discuss that with Curiostau, or should I be transferred to sales? That call, which should have lasted 7 minutes, stretched to nearly an hour as I connected James with our sales team while remaining on the line to provide technical context. By the end, I had spoken more with this single customer than with any other in my 2 years at the call center. Before disconnecting, he did something unexpected. Priya, I've made a note that if I have any further issues, I'd like to speak with you directly. You've been exceptionally helpful. Is that possible? That's very kind, Mr. Miller, James, but our calls are randomly assigned. I can't guarantee we'll speak again. For some reason I couldn't explain. I felt a twinge of disappointment saying this. Well, then I'll just have to hope for some good luck. Thank you again, Priya from Mumbai. After the call ended, I should have moved on to the next one in queue. Instead, I sat for a moment, the ghost of our conversation lingering in my headset. There had been something different about that interaction, a human connection that transcended the scripted exchanges I was used to. I didn't expect to hear from James Miller again. With thousands of calls coming in daily and hundreds of representatives handling them, the chances were infinitesimal. Yet 3 days later, my supervisor approached my workstation with an unusual request. Priya, there's a client specifically asking for you. James Miller from Orbital Ventures. Normally we don't accommodate such requests, but he's apparently considering a major contract upgrade, and he insists on speaking with you. She looked both impressed and suspicious. Did you do something special during your previous call? I just helped him with an authentication issue, I said, my heart inexplicably beating faster. He was preparing for an investor presentation. Well, whatever you did, he's now requesting you as his dedicated support contact. I've been instructed to transfer the call to you. And so began a series of technical support calls with James Miller that gradually, almost imperceptibly, evolved into something more personal. Each call started with legitimate software issues but often extended beyond the immediate problem to brief exchanges about our respective days, the weather in our cities, or small cultural observations. I learned that James was 34, 8 years my senior, and the chief technology officer at Orbital Ventures, a venture capital firm specializing in tech startups. He'd founded a software company in his 20s that had been acquired by Google, giving him the financial freedom to invest in other entrepreneurs' dreams. He was divorced, no children, and lived in a Manhattan apartment with views of Central Park that he claimed to rarely appreciate because he worked too much. In turn, I shared carefully selected details about my life, my literature degree, my love of Bollywood movies alongside Hollywood classics, my family's hopes that I would soon agree to an arranged marriage with one of the suitable boys they paraded before me at community gatherings. I told him about Mumbai's monsoon season, the chaos and beauty of my crowded city, and my dream of someday seeing New York. I never revealed how these conversations had become the highlight of my otherwise monotonous workdays, or how I had begun to recognize his voice instantly among the sea of American accents that flowed through my headset each day. After about 2 months of these intermittent calls, my supervisor called me into her office. My stomach dropped, certain I was about to be reprimanded for the increasingly personal nature of my interactions with James. Priya, I've received a rather unusual email from Orbital Ventures, she began, her expression unreadable. It seems Mr. Miller will be visiting Mumbai next month for a technology conference. His company has requested that you be assigned as their local liaison during his stay, as part of our premium enterprise support package. I stared at her, speechless. This is highly irregular, she continued. But Orbital Ventures is considering a substantial contract with us, and the management team has approved the request. You'll be relieved of your regular duties for 3 days to assist Mr. Miller with any technical issues he encounters while in Mumbai. This is strictly professional, of course. Of course, I echoed, my mind racing. Strictly professional. That night, I couldn't sleep. The thought of meeting James in person sent contradictory waves of excitement and anxiety through me. For months, he had just been a voice, a kind, intelligent, curious voice that had somehow cut through the robotic nature of my job and reminded me that there were real people on both ends of these calls. Now he would become a flesh and blood person, and I would no longer be just a disembodied voice to him either. What if the reality disappointed both of us? What if the easy rapport we'd developed over the phone didn't translate to in-person interaction? What if he had built an image of me in his mind that the real Priya couldn't possibly fulfill? More pressingly, what would my family think if they knew I was meeting an American man, even in a professional capacity? My parents, while loving and supportive of my career, held traditional views about relationships. They were already concerned that at 26 I was prioritizing work over marriage, and any hint of a foreign entanglement would set off alarm bells throughout our extended family network. As the days counted down to James's arrival, I found myself doing things I'd never done for a client visit, researching the best local restaurants that might appeal to Western palates while still offering authentic Indian cuisine, making lists of cultural sites that could be seen in the limited free time his schedule might allow, even spending an entire Saturday shopping for a new outfit that struck the perfect balance between professional and flattering. This is ridiculous, I told my reflection as I tried on the 5th salwar kameez in a high-end boutique. He's just a client, just a voice on the phone who happens to be visiting Mumbai. But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't entirely true. James had become something more than just a client. Not quite a friend, certainly not a romantic prospect, but something undefined that made my heart beat faster whenever my supervisor announced he was on the line. Have you ever felt an unexpected connection with someone who should have remained a stranger? Someone from a completely different world whose path should never have crossed with yours? Have you ever found yourself breaking your own rules, or your culture's expectations, drawn by a force you couldn't quite name? Share your experiences in the comments, because what happened when James finally arrived in Mumbai would make me question everything I thought I knew about fate, cultural boundaries, and my own heart. The day James was scheduled to arrive, Mumbai was hit with an unexpected pre-monsoon shower that turned the city's already chaotic traffic into a complete gridlock. I stood in the gleaming lobby of the Taj Lands End Hotel, where Sunrise Solutions had arranged to meet him, nervously checking my watch every few minutes. He was already 30 minutes late, and I was beginning to worry that his first impression of India would be one of frustration and delays. My phone buzzed with a text message from an international number I didn't recognize. Stuck in traffic that defies all logic. Driver says 20 more minutes. Sorry to keep you waiting. James, I smiled at the message, relieved he wasn't annoyed, and texted back, "Welcome to Mumbai. The traffic is giving you the authentic experience already." When James finally walked through the hotel's revolving doors, I recognized him immediately, though we had never exchanged photos. He was taller than I had imagined, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he spotted me and smiled in recognition. He wore a navy blazer over a light blue shirt, looking remarkably unwrinkled despite the long flight and chaotic taxi ride. "Priya?" he asked, extending his hand. It's so good to finally put a face to the voice that saved my job multiple times. His hand was warm and his grip firm but not overpowering. "Mr. Miller, James," I corrected myself. "Welcome to India. How was your flight?" "Long but worth it," he said, his eyes never leaving mine in a way that made my stomach flutter unexpectedly. "And the traffic from the airport was quite the adventure." "That's Mumbai for you. We call it organized chaos, though sometimes it's more chaos than organized." He laughed, and something about the sound, familiar from our calls yet new in person, made me relax. We fell into conversation as easily as we had over the phone, and before I knew it, we were sitting in the hotel's cafe, my planned professional briefing about his schedule transforming into a 2-hour conversation over masala chai and pastries. "So tomorrow is the tech conference," I said, finally steering us back to the purpose of his visit. "I'll meet you here at 8 a.m. to take you to the venue. The opening keynote is at 9:30, and you're scheduled to speak on the investment panel at 2 p.m. James nodded, making notes in his phone. "And you'll be there the whole day." "That's what they've assigned me to do," I confirmed. "Technical support for whatever you need." He looked up from his phone, his expression suddenly serious. "And what if what I need is a guide to show me the real Mumbai after the conference ends? Is that covered in your assignment?" I felt heat rising to my cheeks. "That would be unusual." "I'm only here for 3 days, Priya. I don't want to just see conference rooms and hotels. I want to understand the city you've told me about, the real Mumbai, not the sanitized tourist version." I should have politely declined. I should have explained that my job was strictly professional and suggested he book a proper tour guide. Instead, I heard myself say, "I think that could be arranged." The next day passed in a blur of conference activities. James was impressive on his panel, speaking with passion and insight about investment opportunities in emerging markets, particularly in Indian tech startups. I noticed how the audience leaned forward when he spoke, captivated by his vision of collaborative global partnerships rather than exploitative outsourcing. When the day's sessions ended, he found me waiting in the lobby as planned. "Ready for the real Mumbai?" I asked, surprising myself with my boldness. James's face lit up. "Lead the way." I took him first to Chowpatty Beach as the sun was setting, where we walked along the shore with hundreds of Mumbai families doing the same. We bought bel puri from a street vendor, and I watched with amusement as James navigated the explosion of flavors, his eyes watering slightly from the unexpected heat. "This is incredible," he said between bites. "But nothing like the Indian food we get in New York." From there, we wandered through the bustling streets of Colaba, past the majestic gateway of India, and through crowded markets where James insisted on buying a beautiful blue scarf to remember the color of the Arabian Sea at sunset, he said, though he handed the package to me with a shy smile. As night fell, we ended up at Marine Drive, known as the Queen's Necklace for the way the streetlights curve along the bay. Resembling a string of pearls, we sat on the seawall, watching the lights of the city reflect on the water. "Thank you for this," James said quietly. "Arha for showing me your city?" "Thank you for wanting to see it," I replied. "Most business visitors never leave their hotels except to go to meetings." "I'm not most business visitors," he said, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. And this isn't just a business trip for me, Priya. I requested you specifically as my liaison because I wanted to meet you in person. Our calls, they've meant something to me. The honesty in his voice stripped away any pretense. They've meant something to me, too, I admitted. More than they should. Why should? Who makes these rules? I laughed softly. My family, for one. Indian society, the professional boundaries of my job. And what do you want, regardless of those rules? It was a question no one had ever really asked me before. Not my parents, not my friends, certainly not the suitable boys I'd been introduced to at community gatherings. What did I, Priya Sharma, want? I began, then stopped, the enormity of the truth catching in my throat. I want to know if this connection we have is real or if it's just a fantasy I've built in my head. James reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and took my hand. His touch sent a current through me that had nothing to do with the evening breeze and everything to do with the way he was looking at me. It's real for me, he said simply. That night changed everything. We talked until the early hours of the morning, sharing stories about our childhoods, our dreams, our disappointments. James told me about his failed marriage to his college sweetheart, how they had grown apart as his business succeeded and her artistic career stalled. I told him about the pressure I felt to fulfill my family's expectations while nurturing my own ambitions to become a writer someday. When he walked me to my door, I lived with my parents in a modest apartment in Ontario, a middle-class suburb. He didn't try to kiss me, which both disappointed and relieved me. Instead, he asked if he could see me again the next day, after his morning meetings. Yes, I said, knowing I was stepping into territory that would complicate my life immeasurably. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with contradictory emotions. By morning, anxiety had set in. What was I doing? James would return to New York in 2 days. My family would be scandalized if they knew I was developing feelings for an American businessman. My job could be at risk if my supervisor learned our relationship had moved beyond professional boundaries. When I met James at his hotel the following afternoon, my face must have betrayed my turmoil. What's wrong? He asked immediately. This is impossible, I blurted out. You live in New York. I live here. You'll leave tomorrow. And then what? We go back to occasional phone calls until they fade away? Or worse, you invite me to New York, and my family disowns me for running off with an American man I barely know. James led me to a quiet corner of the hotel lobby. Priya, slow down. I understand this is complicated. I don't have all the answers either. But I know that what I feel for you is unlike anything I've felt before, and I'm not willing to just walk away from it without exploring what it could be. My parents would never accept this, I said, voicing my deepest fear. In their world, I should marry an Indian man from a good family, preferably one they've selected themselves. Then let me meet them, James said, so matter-of-factly that I was sure I'd misheard. Meet my parents? Are you serious? Completely. If they're such an important part of your life, I want to meet them. I respect their culture and traditions, even if I'm not part of them. At least give me a chance to show them I'm not the American villain in some Bollywood movie coming to steal their daughter away. His earnestness both touched and terrified me. James, you don't understand. Indian parents don't just casually meet someone their daughter is what? He prompted gently when I stumbled. Is having feelings for... I finished, finally admitting it aloud. The smile that spread across his face made my heart skip. You have feelings for me? You know I do, I said, unable to suppress my own smile. But that doesn't solve our problem. Maybe not, but it's a start. He took both my hands in his. Priya, I'm not asking you to choose between your family and me. I would never do that. I'm just asking for a chance to get to know them, and for them to get to know me. The rest we can figure out together. His optimism was infectious, but reality was still a cold weight in my stomach. My father is very traditional. I respect that. I'll be respectful too. They'll have a million questions. I've got nothing to hide. They might be rude or suspicious. I can handle it. I took a deep breath, hardly believing what I was about to say. Fine. You can come for dinner tonight. But don't say I didn't warn you. That evening was possibly the most surreal of my life. James arrived at our modest apartment bearing gifts: a beautiful shawl for my mother, a bottle of single malt whiskey for my father, and a box of premium American chocolates for the family. He had even watched YouTube videos on proper etiquette in an Indian household and removed his shoes without being asked, folded his hands in namaste to greet my parents, and politely accepted the vegetarian dinner my mother had prepared, praising every dish with genuine enthusiasm. My father, initially cold and formal, gradually warmed up as James spoke knowledgeably about Indian economics and the potential of local tech startups. My mother, ever the observer, said little but missed nothing, her eyes tracking every interaction between James and me with laser focus. After dinner, while my mother and I cleared the dishes, she refused James's offer to help, telling him firmly that guests don't work in our home. I could hear my father and James continuing their conversation in the living room, their voices low but not tense. He seems decent, my mother said cautiously as we washed dishes together. It was the closest thing to approval I could have hoped for. He is, Ma. He's kind and respectful and intelligent. She gave me a long look. And you have feelings for this man? After knowing him for such a short time? I couldn't lie to her. Yes, I do. She sighed deeply. Your father and I had hoped. Well, you know what we hoped. A nice Indian boy from our community. A simple life. I know, Ma, and I've tried to want that too. But your heart has other ideas, she finished for me, surprising me with her insight. Hearts rarely follow sensible paths. Betty, mine certainly didn't. I looked at her in shock. My parents and marriage had been arranged. I'd never heard her suggest otherwise. She smiled at my expression. You think I didn't fight my parents when they first suggested your father? I had other dreams too once. But I came to love him deeply. Sometimes the path our families choose and the path our hearts choose can be the same in the end. And sometimes they can't, I said softly. She squeezed my hand, her eyes sad but understanding. Yes, sometimes they can't. When James finally left our home that night, my father shook his hand firmly and invited him to return for dinner the following evening, his last in Mumbai. It wasn't enthusiastic approval, but it was far more than I had dared to hope for. Standing at the door to see him off, with my parents tactfully retreating inside to give us a moment of privacy, James looked at me with wonder. Your family is amazing, he said. Now I understand where you get your strength and grace. They're trying, I replied, but it's more than I expected. Does this mean I can see you tomorrow, before my flight? Yes, and apparently you'll be having dinner with my family again tomorrow night. He smiled, then grew serious. Priya, I know I'm leaving tomorrow and we still have so much to figure out. But I want you to know that this, whatever is happening between us, it matters to me. It matters enough that I'm already looking at flights back to Mumbai next month. My heart soared, even as my practical mind scrambled to make sense of what he was suggesting. James, we live on opposite sides of the world. We come from completely different cultures. My family is barely tolerating the idea of you now. I don't know if they'll ever fully accept us together. I know all that, and I know it won't be easy. But doesn't the fact that we found each other at all, across thousands of miles, different worlds, through a random customer service call, doesn't that suggest something? That maybe this is worth fighting for. As I looked into his eyes, I felt torn between two worlds, the traditional one I'd been raised in and the unknown one that James represented. Could I really consider building a life that bridged these worlds? Was this connection, this powerful, unexpected bond, strong enough to overcome the obstacles we would inevitably face? What would you do if you found yourself falling for someone from a completely different world? Would you follow your heart, even if it meant challenging your family's expectations and your own cultural identity? Have you ever had to choose between traditions and unexpected love? Share your thoughts in the comments, because what happened next in our story would test the very foundations of everything I believed about love, family, and my own identity. James's last day in Mumbai passed in a whirlwind of stolen moments between his final meetings. We met for lunch at a small cafe near his conference venue, where he surprised me by ordering in carefully practiced Hindi that made the waiter smile appreciatively. That evening, dinner with my family went more smoothly than the first, with my father actually laughing at James's self-deprecating stories about his cultural missteps in India. "Your father asked me what my intentions are," James told me as we shared a brief moment alone on our small balcony afterward, the sounds of Mumbai's night traffic creating a familiar backdrop to an utterly unfamiliar conversation. My heart stuttered. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That I care deeply for you, that I want to see where this relationship could go, and that I respect your family and culture." "And what did he say to that?" James smiled. "He said I'd better be prepared to visit India frequently because his daughter is the pride of his life, and he won't have her moving to America with a man she barely knows." I exhaled slowly, reading between the lines. So he's not saying no to us seeing each other. Not exactly. He's setting boundaries, which I respect. He also said he wants to properly investigate my background, which I think means he's going to Google me extensively. I couldn't help but laugh. That sounds like Baba. He thinks he's very tech-savvy. When it was time for James to leave for the airport, my parents surprised me by both coming to the door to say goodbye, a gesture of acceptance I hadn't dared hope for. "You have a wonderful daughter, Mr. and Mrs. Sharma," James said, folding his hands in namaste. "Thank you for welcoming me into your home." My father nodded solemnly. "She is wonderful. Remember that." I walked James to his waiting taxi, my heart heavy with the impending separation. Standing beside the car, he took both my hands in his. "This isn't goodbye, Priya. It's just the beginning." "Easy to say, harder to live," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "New York is a world away." "Then I'll bring that world closer." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "I open this after I'm gone." The taxi pulled away, and I stood watching until it disappeared into Mumbai's chaotic traffic, the envelope clutched in my hand. Back in my room, I opened it to find a handwritten note and a small silver pendant in the shape of a telephone. "Dear Priya," the note read, "until we can bridge the distance between us, this is to remind you that sometimes the most important connections begin with a simple call. I'll be on a plane back to Mumbai in exactly 1 month. All my love, James." Attached was a printed flight itinerary, confirming his words. He was coming back. In just 4 weeks. Those 4 weeks were both the longest and shortest of my life. By day, I returned to my job at the call center, though I was now assigned to Orbital Ventures as their dedicated support representative. By night, James and I spoke for hours via video calls, getting to know each other more deeply, discussing everything from our favorite books to our greatest fears. I learned that despite his success, James harbored insecurities about following in his father's footsteps, a brilliant surgeon who had saved countless lives while James just moved money around. He learned about my secret drawer full of short stories I'd written but never shown anyone, tales that blended Indian traditions with contemporary themes. "You should publish them," he said one night, after I'd hesitantly read him a passage. "They're not good enough," I demurred. "They're beautiful, Priya. The world needs your voice." My parents, meanwhile, were processing this unexpected development in their own way. My father indeed investigated James thoroughly online, grudgingly admitting he was impressed by his business accomplishments. My mother began casually mentioning American customs she'd learned about, as if preparing herself for a future that might include a foreign son-in-law. My older brother Vikram, who lived in Bangalore with his wife, called after my mother inevitably told him about James. "An American businessman?" he asked, his tone a mixture of concern and amusement. "Only you would manage to find the most complicated path possible, Priya." "It's not like I planned it," I defended myself. "I know. That's what makes it interesting. Is he good to you?" "Yes," I said simply. "He sees me, really sees me." Then I look forward to meeting him, and to watching Baba try to maintain his disapproval while secretly bragging to his friends that his daughter is dating a successful American entrepreneur. True to his word, James returned to Mumbai exactly 1 month later, this time for a 10-day stay that he'd arranged by scheduling meetings with potential investment partners throughout the city. He stayed in the same hotel but spent most evenings with my family, patiently answering my father's increasingly specific questions about his business, family background, and long-term plans. On his third day back, he surprised me by asking if I would take a short trip with him to Agra to see the Taj Mahal. "It's a 2-hour flight," he said, "and I've booked rooms at a nice hotel. Separate rooms," he added quickly, respecting the boundaries of my culture. I want to see it with you." My immediate instinct was to refuse. Unmarried Indian women didn't just go on overnight trips with men, especially foreign men they'd known for only a short time. My parents would never allow it, except, astonishingly, they did. "We've spoken with James about this," my mother told me when I reluctantly broached the subject, certain of rejection. "He has shown us the hotel reservation. 2 rooms. Very proper. Your father's cousin Anjali lives in Agra. She will meet you there and act as your chaperone during the visit." I stared at her in disbelief. "You're actually saying yes?" My mother smiled sadly. "Your world is changing, Betty. Perhaps ours must change a little too." The trip to Agra was magical. Despite, or perhaps because of, my father's cousin Anjali accompanying us everywhere with a determined expression that dared either of us to step out of line. James was awestruck by the Taj Mahal, listening intently as I shared the romantic and tragic story of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal. "A monument to love that has lasted centuries," he said quietly as we stood before the magnificent white marble structure. "It makes you think about what we build that might outlast us." On our last evening in Agra, after Anjali had finally given us a moment alone on the hotel's garden terrace, though she watched vigilantly from a distance, James took my hand. "Priya, these past months have been the most unexpected and wonderful of my life. I came to India for business and found something infinitely more valuable." He paused, seeming uncharacteristically nervous. "I know we come from different worlds, but I want to find a way to bridge them. I'm not asking you to leave your family or abandon your culture. I'm asking if you'd be willing to help me create something new, a life that honors both our worlds." My heart was pounding. "What exactly are you saying, James?" "I'm saying that I've been looking into opening an Orbital Ventures office in Mumbai. I'm saying that I could split my time between New York and here, at least until we figure out what our future might look like together. I'm saying that I'm in love with you, Priya Sharma, and I want to build something lasting with you, whatever form that needs to take." Tears filled my eyes. "I love you too," I whispered, the words both frightening and liberating. "But this won't be easy. There will be so many challenges, so many adjustments." "I know," he said, squeezing my hand, "and I'm ready for them all." "Are you?" Looking into his eyes, I found my answer. Yes. Yes, I am. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of changes. James opened a Mumbai office of Orbital Ventures, focusing on investing in Indian tech startups. He rented an apartment in a building not far from my parents' home and began taking Hindi lessons 3 times a week. I continued working at Sunrise Solutions, but also began freelancing as a cultural consultant for American companies looking to establish authentic connections in India, a role James helped me develop through his business contacts. Our relationship deepened as we navigated the complex waters of our cultural differences. There were misunderstandings and occasional frustrations. James sometimes found Indian family dynamics overwhelming, while I struggled to understand the American emphasis on individualism over community. But with each challenge, our commitment to building our unique path only strengthened. 8 months after our first in-person meeting, James invited my entire family to dinner at his apartment. He had learned to cook several Indian dishes, with considerable help from my mother during weekly cooking lessons that had become a cherished ritual between them. After dinner, he asked for a moment to speak with my parents privately, following traditional Indian protocol by formally asking for their blessing before proposing to me. When they returned to the dining room, my mother's eyes were shining with tears, and my father wore an expression of solemn pride. James knelt before me with a small box containing a ring that perfectly blended Western and Indian design, a diamond set alongside smaller rubies in a gold band patterned with traditional Indian motifs. "Priya Sharma, you answered a call that changed my life. Will you answer one more and agree to marry me?" Through happy tears, I said yes. Our wedding, held 6 months later, was a joyful fusion of traditions. I wore a red bridal lehenga for the Hindu ceremony in the morning and a white gown for the Western ceremony in the evening. James arrived on a decorated white horse as tradition dictated, garlanded with marigolds and surrounded by his American family and friends who had embraced the Indian celebrations with enthusiasm. My family performed every ritual with precision, my father's face a mixture of emotions as he placed my hand in James's during the Kanyadan ceremony. We decided to make Mumbai our primary home, with regular extended visits to New York. James's business thrived as he connected American investors with promising Indian startups, while I finally found the courage to submit my stories to publishers. To my amazement, my first collection of short stories about cross-cultural relationships was accepted by a major publishing house and received critical acclaim for its authentic portrayal of modern India's intersection with global influences. 2 years after our wedding, our daughter Leela was born, a perfect blend of both our worlds with her father's green eyes and my dark hair. We are raising her to honor both her Indian and American heritage, to navigate both worlds with confidence and grace. Sometimes, on quiet evenings when Mumbai's usual chaos has momentarily subsided, James and I sit on our balcony overlooking the city lights, Leela sleeping peacefully inside, and marvel at the unlikely path that brought us together. If you hadn't been assigned to my call that day, James often says, if you hadn't told me your real name, if you hadn't been so persistent in asking for me for technical support, if your parents hadn't been willing to meet me. So many ifs, so many moments where our story could have taken a different turn. From a random customer service call to a cross-continental love story that defied cultural expectations, our journey reminds me daily that the most beautiful things in life are often the most unexpected. I still work in customer service, though in a very different capacity now. James and I have established a foundation that provides education and professional development for call center workers in India, helping them build careers that utilize their talents beyond scripted interactions. Every time I visit the training center and see young Indians learning skills that will open new doors for them, I think about that first call with James and how it opened a door I never knew existed. Life isn't perfect, of course. We still navigate cultural differences, still face raised eyebrows from some traditionalists in my community, still work to ensure Leela grows up understanding and appreciating both sides of her heritage. James still struggles sometimes with the intricate dynamics of Indian family life, and I occasionally find myself bewildered by certain American customs. But every challenge has only strengthened our commitment to creating our unique path, one that respects where we've come from while embracing where we're going together. We've learned that love doesn't require abandoning your roots. It sometimes means growing new ones that intertwine with the old, creating something stronger and more beautiful than either could be alone. So if there's one thing I've learned from my journey from that Mumbai call center to where I am today, it's this. Don't be afraid of unexpected connections, of paths that seem impossible or worlds that appear too different to bridge. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the most unlikely first chapters. From a customer service call to a life beyond anything I could have imagined, it's not the story I was raised to expect, but it's the one I'm profoundly grateful to be living. If our story has touched your heart or inspired you to believe in unexpected connections, please subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that transcend borders and challenge perceptions. Like and share this video with someone who might need a reminder that love can find us in the most surprising ways, and that sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin with a simple, "Hello, how may I help you?"